Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we fancy.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central.
Round the Hay Bale is brought to you by...
With gardening season in full bloom, Calzyme certified organic products are just what your garden needs.
From fertilizing your orchards to feeding your soil, Calzyme's calcium-based fertilizer gives your plants the essential minerals they need to thrive.
Applying Calzyme to agricultural soils and waters has been proven to increase plant and crop yields while making vegetables and grains healthier and more nutritious.
In addition, Calzyme can help restore the nutrient balance in animals when they're fed plants grown using Calzyme in both soil and water.
To check out all of Calzyme's organic products, visit calzyme.com and use our promo code HAYBALE for 10% off of your purchase.
Grab a cup of joe and gather round the hay bale with your hosts, Alicia from Country Mama Musings, Kacy from Ormsby Farms, and Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Now, here they are. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome back to Season 4 of Round the Hay Bale, Unscripted. I'm Alicia from Country Mama Musings.
I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch.
And I am Kacy from Ormsby Farm. And speaking of Kacy's, we have my twinsy, the Kacy from Boots and Bounty, but also Season 1 of Round the Hay Bale. So please welcome back to the Hay Bale our good friend Kacy. What's up, Kacy? Hey, girl.
Hello. Hey, guys. Welcome back. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys tonight.
We're glad to see you. We've missed you, but we know you've been up to some really exciting things on your homestead. So we're glad that you're back with us tonight to share some of those milestones and great things that you've been up to. Why don't you fill us in on what's going on over at your place?
Absolutely. Well, since I've been on here with you guys, I think it's been about 2 years, since it's been a hot minute. So what has happened? Of course, we moved and bought more land to expand our homestead. We did that back in October. And we have just been throwing everything in and trying to get everything done, set up to get animals in the garden and all that good stuff started, as everybody does once they move. We still haven't even moved everything into our house yet, but we've got our animals and we got our garden set up. And that's what matters. So we've been busy just getting everything situated and in order and still trying to video and get things on YouTube for you guys to keep in touch.
Well, with all that, moving and getting things situated, it's a really great time for us to talk to you because I know that with all the moving, that means you're getting a new garden situation happening. And with that, we're going to talk today with you specifically about some gardening tricks and different hacks, different ways to simply, kind of simplify your gardening and ways that you can kind of zero cost garden because it takes a lot to move, first of all. And anybody that's moved into a homestead or into a place where they want to start a garden knows how much that costs. So today we really want to focus on different ways that you save money, whether it's zero cost or low cost, when you're now starting your garden all over again. How have you saved money? And what are some tips and tricks you can share with the listeners?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
I know, right?
Well, that's a lot of information. I'll throw out here real quick. I did do a series called Homesteading for Free on my YouTube channel at Boots and Bounty Homestead. We actually start with the grass and go to the completed garden. The whole garden, not counting the fence that was around it because not everybody needs a fence. It only cost $45 for us. The whole garden, 3,500 square feet. And that's even taking the little chicken area out of it. So 3,500 square feet of walkways, garden beds, planting area, everything cost us $45. And that was not even any kind of tools or equipment or anything like that. That was paying the guys to load our trailers 3 times. So
That's
we wouldn't have to do
impressive.
it. Yeah, so it was $15 each time for them to load our trailer
Very
with
impressive.
the soil. We'll get to that in a second of what we obtained to actually fill our garden beds. So in that series, I talk about how we start with the grass, how we do the ground cover. And since we just moved, a really good tip that we did was using the cardboard boxes. So we lay down cardboard boxes as a weed barrier. Right on top of that, it's fall time. So we, at that time it was fall time. We had saved up all the leaves, all the pine needles, everything. We put that on top of the cardboard. So that was a double layer of mulch and ground cover that we did to start the garden beds and the walkways. So once we got the ground covered and laid down, then we moved into obtaining 2 different things. We needed soil and we needed our wood chips for the walkways. So on my YouTube channel, you'll see where I did garden tours and I showed you how we did like 24 to 36 inch beds with about 24 inch walkways because we needed our wheelbarrow to fit down between them so we can, restock and rebuild our garden beds every year. So starting with the soil, what we did is we actually go to a local cotton gin. So now most people are questioning, oh my gosh, they spray with chemicals, and it's all this non-organic stuff. I never claimed to be organic. I'm just trying to get by and, get the garden planted. But this compost is actually what it is. It is all of the remains after they process the cotton from the fields. They take out all the seeds, all the cotton fiber, all of the plant material. So you've got your carbon, your nitrogen, and all that good stuff that's going to break down. And over about 6 months, it breaks down everything. So you no longer have seeds or hulls or cotton fibers or, all the chemicals have, started to deteriorate anything that they use. And we've never had any problem with like Grazon you hear people talking about. We don't have farmers around here that use that. So we've been very lucky. So what we do is we use that gin trash and we created what we called raised rows. We didn't till because we actually sold our tiller. We was not going to invest in a tractor. We're doing this all by hand ourselves. So you'll see in our videos how, it's just me and my husband and my 2 children that live with me. That's what we did. We did it all by hand, by wheelbarrows, by, rakes and forks. It was all by hand. We didn't use any kind of major equipment. And it took us about 2 months. But what we did was we formed the raised beds. And then we got lucky because my neighbor was cutting down his tree. I ran over there one day and got the tree service to bring over a load of wood chips. And so that's how we created the walkways in the garden between the raised rows, was covering it with about 6 to 8 inches of wood chips. So we got about halfway through, and then my other neighbor down the road was cutting up about 4 more trees. So I ran down there one day, like right down the hill, and I'm like, please come dump it in my yard. And luckily it was the same tree company, so they knew exactly where to dump it and all that. So I've gotten 2 loads already of wood chips, and we've gotten the garden about 2/3 done of the walkways. So we're still working on getting just a little bit more done, but Lord have mercy. The stuff we have already gotten out of that garden is unreal, absolutely unreal. I have an island that is just full of vegetables, and we are doing really good. And like I said, it only cost us $45, and that was 3 trailer loads at the cotton gin for us paying the guys $15 to use a tractor to load our trailer. So very,
Wow.
very cheap, very cheap.
It's really a great point that it's important to keep an eye on what's going on in your neighborhood. Get to know your neighbors.
Absolutely.
Keep an eye on what they're doing, and don't be shy about going up and asking either your neighbors or that company that's providing a service, hey, can I take that off your hands? Because they have to go dump it somewhere.
Yes.
They'd be
Absolutely.
certainly happy to not have to go pay fees to go put it somewhere else. They'd be
Mm-hmm.
more than happy to just come over and dump it. And if you don't happen to have anybody that has trees that they're doing something like this, like what Kacy has had the opportunity to really get advantage of this. There are services in many areas. There's Chip Drop. There's other services where you can sign up to have your address added to a list where some of these companies will come and drop off the chips. So keep an eye out for that. But that's really great, Kacy, that you had that right down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
what a blessing to have that.
Yeah,
And it's really good to hear that your garden is doing so well. So I was going to say
it
so
is.
early in the season. For me,
Yeah.
I'm only, 2 weeks past our last frost. So I've still got seedlings going. So
I'm
you guys
almost
are
3
all
months
ahead of
past
me.
mine.
So
Yeah, but it's doing really good.
I have to say on this, Kacy, because I have to tell a story from your video that you're talking about. So, for those that have watched the video, for our listeners, they put up this fence. And so I'm watching and I was like, okay, twinsies, putting up, okay, T posts every 6 feet. Okay, okay, I'm watching. Yeah, okay. I said, well, they did it. Okay, it's just her and her husband and the kids. I'm like, we definitely can do it. Okay, so we put up our chicken run today. It's a lot harder to put up fence than how it shows on YouTube. Listeners, it is complicated. It is hot. Me and Kacy are in the south. So, Monica's in
Mm-hmm.
the south too. We're all in the 900-degree weather right now. And it was, I finished it today. And Kacy, yours looks so beautiful and perfect, all set up. Mine looks a little wonky and wavy, but I said, then my chickens can feel like they're at the beach because it's kind of like the ocean kind of feel. So that's where I'm going with it. But I had to tell that funny story because I watched that video and I was like, that's so smart to use cardboard. Because, you use those boxes when you do hugelkultur, like raised beds. So why not just put it right on top of the ground? Put all that leaves and pine straw and uh, even wood chips. I think I've used wood chips before in my hugelkultur beds to make. What'd you call it? You called it like, because you didn't call it a raised bed. You
Raised
called it
row.
a raised
Raised
row.
rows. Hmm.
It's
And then I built my
brilliant.
walkways up to be even with the raised rows. So they don't look raised, but I
Hmm.
put the wood chips all even with it. So eventually everything's going to settle, over time it's going to settle down and break down so I can just keep adding it to it. And I didn't really expect a whole lot out of my garden this year, it being, fresh and still composting and, all that. It's still going through the process of making. And it has just really blown me and my daddy away, of how much I've already gotten out of it and how much it's grown. My trellises are almost covered. And I'm like, I've never had this nice of a garden. When I lived in the city at our old homestead, I had 400 square feet, and now I'm telling Stephen, I'm running out of room. And he was like, just imagine how did you get that much out of the garden? That was 400 square feet. And now you've got 3,500 square feet and you're running out of room. I was like, well, because a third of it is the berry patch, so we've got our own little berry patch over there that's going to sit there and do its thing for years and years and years. And the rest of it's seasonal stuff, and I'm like, I'm just running out of room. I think I got
I
too
know how that
excited.
is.
Well, it's funny when you have like this small space and you do so much, and then you
Yeah.
go to a larger space and you're like, I have all this room. And then all of a sudden the room is gone and you're like, I need more space. And then you think, how did I do? Like you said, Stephen was like,
Yes.
how did you do so much? But I feel that so much because I have this big space to garden in and I have all these things I want to put in. And then we put the greenhouse in like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now. And I'm like, man, it took up a lot of my garden sticking that greenhouse there because he literally put it like in my garden. So I lost a bunch. He's like, you didn't really lose a bunch. You gained a greenhouse. And I'm like, I can't really use the greenhouse during the year because it's too hot. I mean, it's like 150 degrees in the greenhouse right now. Like if you go in there, you're like, everything's
Yeah.
going to die in here.
Right.
But it's a good space.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing we're talking about doing. We're actually going to because I don't know if you guys have ever, actually seen the garden layout. We've got the chickens on a third of it, and then it U wraps around the chickens. So, half of the garden is in front, and then we've got just, two little edges that go around the sides of the chickens. And so what we're talking about, because the garden, all of that, including the chickens, is like 50 by 90.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the chickens kind of cut out of it, I can actually do like a 30 by 90 greenhouse frame over the big section. And we're actually going to put shade cloth over it. And so the biggest garden section is actually going to be under a greenhouse kind of thing, but we're going to put shade cloth over it in the summertime. And then that way we can go ahead and still put the wrap on it during the fall and winter, usually just January and February, to be quite honest. So that way we can still grow year round, because I only need to cover in January and February, and everything else, grows uncovered just fine. But we were actually talking about that, seeing if we could start saving up to do something like that and get it covered. Just that big main growing area, because it's hot as Hades out there right now. Whew.
Yeah.
And especially in greenhouses in the South. I tried, for our listeners that have followed Ormsby Farm for a while, that we tried stuff in there. Everything has died, like every single thing. We're getting our greenhouse redone right now, but all my greenhouse is going to be for fruit trees. That's a crazy even thing to say. Like, that's pretty much what it's going to be, is fruit trees. But speaking of, I was so excited when we talked about doing this topic today on the episode. And I reached out to Kacy because I was like, that's Kacy's thing. Back in season 1, Kacy, you're the one that taught me about the sucker tomato limbs. I guess I'm calling it right. Yeah. Sucker branch. That can actually turn into another tomato plant.
Exactly.
And it blows my mind. So when I think of garden tips and tricks, these are some of the things that I think a lot of people don't know about certain plants. Like with strawberry plants, that if you root one of the vines of the strawberry, you can actually get another plant. You can cut it and move it or sell it or all that kind of stuff. Monica, you didn't know that? No.
Oh, girl.
No, yes. I'm a strawberry killer, apparently. I plant strawberries. I have a lot of love for strawberries. I love them. My kids love them. We plant them, and we usually get like 1 or 2 strawberries, and we're all like excited. We're like dancing. We're so excited. And then nothing else happens. It all dies.
Same thing here, Monica. Same thing.
Well, with strawberries, say like the Ozarks Beauty, like the June bearing, because I've never done everbearing. We've always had Ozark Beauties. That's the only ones I've ever grown. So those are June bearing, which you harvest between May and June, and that's it. You get all of it in. That's your jam berries. Those only produce for the 2nd and 3rd year. After the 2nd and 3rd year, you actually pull the mother plants out. Okay. Now they're going to send out runners, and those runners are going to root, or you can cut them off or whatever and root them yourself wherever you want them to go. It's either a wild thing or a controlled thing, however detailed you want to get into it. And those are actually your new plants. Now, strawberries produce on the 2nd year, kind of like blackberries. They grow the plant the 1st year, produce the 2nd year and 3rd year. And then by the 3rd year, they're kind of done, like chickens. They kind of start slacking off after the 3rd year. So you don't have to pull up the 3rd year plant, but it is going to stop producing slowly after that. And it's just going to take up the minerals out of the ground and not give you a whole lot. But it's already produced other babies that you can take off. Now, every year, I'll tell you, when I was at the old homestead, I started out with 8 strawberry plants, 8 that I bought. And every year I sold up to 400 plants off of those 8. Absolutely insane. Off of all the runners, because on every runner you get 5 or 6 plants. Every time there's a leaf that comes up off that runner, that's a plant. So all you got to do is either let it root, cut it and dig it up, or you can cut it and root it and then, transplant it or whatever. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a video on this on YouTube?
I do, but it's at the old homestead. It's about 2 years old, but yes,
that's
I do.
Fine. I'll be looking that up. Now, you've just blown my mind too, because you said that the berries are the same way blackberries are.
Yes, I have one on blackberries too.
Because here's the thing, I want to berry bushes and stuff, but I'm not in the business of tearing things out after 3 years. I can't be putting a little foot tag on it like these chickens and saying, well, that was born in 2023, so we're gonna have to kill it in 2026. I ain't just ripping a plant up. I can't.
Well, with strawberries, you can tell when they get old, because at the bottom, they're really big and fat. They got a lot of leaves, a lot of brown stuff.
Hey,
That
now
where
I
they have
resemble that remark.
I
The
was
older I get, the wider I get around the bottom. I can't. What I can't.
in the
Just call
brown.
me Miss Strawberry now. Strawberry shortcake.
I
oh,
was a
that's
little
why you
worried
did the
too.
red with strawberry cheeks. So yeah, that's how you tell the older ones, because it does have that bigger bottom on it, and it has a lot of the brown leaves where it has sent these 2 years of runners off and where they have died. So whenever you get that thicker bottom, usually about 2 inches round, that's getting close to when it's done. Now back to the blackberries. With blackberries, I do have a video on this, but whenever you have a plant that is producing, that is actually the second year plant or the second year stalk or cane or whatever people want to call it. So with blackberries, it's going to send up this central cane, and it may be 2 or 3 of them. And then it's going to be the bright green one. That's not what you're going to harvest of. That's what's going to be next year's plant. So whenever you pick off of this year's plant, that cane is actually going to turn brown at the end of the year. You cut it off at the bottom and discard it. You can do whatever you want to with it. Go fishing with it, give it to the chickens, whatever you want to do with it. So next year's plant is already growing. Now with tame blackberries, with I don't even know what variety mine is. It's 30, 40 years old. I don't know. I got it from my dad. And so that's another thing that you can get, is you can actually cut those canes off and reroot them where the leaves come out, and they actually make new plants, new stalks for next year. So with those stalks, you've got to watch them, because they'll get, 15, 20 feet long. If they lay on the ground, they'll root. So you've got to keep them upright. You can cut them off at about 6 to 8 feet, and all those leaves that are growing up the cane are going to make limbs that come out of those leaves. Those are going to be your limbs that produce the fruit. We like to keep ours about 3 or 4 feet long. So we've got this one central cane going up, and then we've got all these limbs coming off that are about 3 or 4 feet long. So that way we kind of keep them tame. If not, you're going to have just a big bush of 3 or 4 canes that's got hundreds of limbs coming off of it, and it's just going to be a big mess. You can't get to berries. So that's just the way we like to do ours. But yeah, you usually don't keep it no more than about 2 canes per plant to be able to have it manageable. And cut the ones that you are harvesting off of, they're not going to produce anymore. They're actually going to die. So you can cut those off and then leave the bright green canes for next year. And they're going to overwinter themselves just fine every year. Yeah.
Well, see, this is pretty cool because, see, I didn't know any of this. So this is one of those ways, we've talked about it before on other podcasts where we talk about, being self-sustainable, but we actually want to be more of like community sustainable, and making those connections. Because when I know somebody that has not only the knowledge, but could possibly have the rooting things, like if you have extra whatever, I can say, hey, can we trade? I've got something that you need. You've got something that I want to do. And we can trade and barter. And that's such a great way to be, to zero cost farm or to, low cost garden and farm, because you can barter. And that's a great way to do it, especially if you've got things coming up and not only have the knowledge, but you have those extra pieces that, like you said, you don't necessarily need all of them. You have plenty that you can either bless people with or sell or whatever. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And see, raspberries are kind of the
that.
same way. Raspberries grow along the ground and they produce plants. So you can dig those little plants up and you can transplant them. Grapes, you can propagate them. As soon as they touch the ground, they are going to root. You've got to keep those plants, up off the ground. If not, you're going to have plants out the wazoo that have rooted and you can't do anything with them, but cut them off and give them to somebody.
I've got that wild black raspberry patch at the back of our farm.
Mhm.
And that has been a dream of mine, is to go get some of those canes and transplant them and actually have a well manicured raspberry trellis so that I can get the fruit without tearing my arms up. Because what I've got right now is probably 40 foot long and 10 feet deep. And so I only get a portion.
Yeah.
And I have told my husband I just have these big lofty dreams of getting railroad ties or landscaping logs that we have here on the property and use them to make these big, beautiful trellises. It hasn't happened yet, but someday, if he hears this, I'm going to put that bee in his bonnet and plant that seed that I really do want those for my raspberries. But I know you're right. Once that king comes down and bends down and touches the ground, it's going to root and it's going to start another plant. And that's how those things get out of control.
Yep.
So, but right now I don't mind where it's at. I don't care if it's out of control, but I do want something that's a little bit more
Yeah.
attainable for me and looks aesthetically pleasing.
Now, is it
So,
the same, Casey, for blueberries? Because we've said
No,
blackberries, we said raspberries. That's just you plant it, it
blueberries are a
produces
bush.
for Evs. Yes, okay. Because
Yeah,
now
it
I'm
is what
thinking
it
over
is.
here, I'm like, do I got to go and cut out some stuff on my blueberry bushes? But no, I don't have the raspberry and blackberries. But that is so. See,
Yeah.
we actually talked about this type of stuff on season 1 when Casey was hosting with us about how you can take this small amount of money, even
Yeah.
if you're on the EBT program and where your homestead is, and use the government money to, instead of buying you the crab legs, you can then buy you a bush or a raspberry plant, because you can buy seeds, you can buy the plants, and you can even buy the veggies. And some organic veggies, like with celery, you can root and then you have a plant again. So that's why it's so exciting about talking about gardening hacks and free way of gardening. And it's just, God gives you this one thing that literally can turn into, like, tomatoes. One tomato
Hmm.
plant can provide tomatoes for the rest of your life, as long
Hmm.
as you know what to do with getting the seeds or clipping the suckers or however it is. It's just so interesting to me. It makes me like a little giddy schoolboy over here.
Well, I had a list of, when I was doing the Homesteading for Free series, I had a whole list of stuff and I didn't quite get finished with it because we just kind of jumped in with both feet, getting everything planted because we got it done and it was gardening season. Bam, we were, rolling. But that was one thing that I had on the plan was to do a free plant video as part of the Homesteading for Free, talking about the suckers and talking about cloning. You can do cloning. You can do propagating. You can, it's so many different ways that people say you can do stuff, and it's really simple, really simple. And another video I did on there, we're talking about growing things, is fertilizing stuff, and that's why we use the cardboard and the pine needles and the wood chips and the gin trash, all of that stuff is fertilizer in some form or fashion for the garden. But so is banana peels, so is bones, so is blood, those things like that. Whenever you harvest animals, you can use the blood meal. Yeah. Yeah, and the hair for the protein, different things like that. It's crazy. Leaves. I mean, God gives you all of this stuff basically for free. Like, you're gonna eat, so you're gonna have, not Alicia, but you're gonna have chicken bones, you know, and you can bake those and ground them down. And I did a video on how to make your own bone meal, how to use bananas to make your own potassium water, or potash, as Kacy likes to call it. So you make your own
Ah!
potassium.
Potash, potash.
Potash. So I mean, yeah, all of this stuff you're going to use, you're going to eat, you're going to have this waste, and you could turn around and use it on your garden. And that's one of the things that I talked about in that fertilizer video. Also, is you can compost in place. Anything you eat other than your fats and your oils, you can throw out on your garden, and it's going to feed the worms. The worms are going to eat that. The worms are going to decompose everything in your garden, and they're just going to make everything rich. They're going to poop. That's where you get your worm castings from. It's so much that goes in it for so little, and it's provided to you. Everything is provided to you. Whatever you eat, your garden is going to eat, and your garden's going to feed you, just like the chickens. Feed the scraps to the chickens. Your chickens are going to feed you one way or another, whether it's eggs or meat. So it's so great to just have this. The earth is going to take care of itself. God made it to take care of itself. We just have to listen to it and learn how to cope with it and how to work with it, to make everything kind of marry together in harmony.
and I think that's key because I really truly believe we need to have a resurgence in this type of thinking because we live in a disposable society. It is
Yes.
so easy to just throw everything away.
Mm-hmm.
everything is disposable, whether it is our dinnerware, our diapers, and sadly, our relationships much of the time. But so much of what we eat and so much of what we bring into our home, it is so easy to just open the waste bin and throw it away instead of trying to find a way to make it work for you. And that's something that has been brought up in the podcast before, is everything on your homestead needs to work for you. It needs to have a job. Why shouldn't your trash work for you as well? Why shouldn't the extra little things like the runners work for you? I can't believe you sold that many strawberry plants. And so, and there's the thing there too. Some people might say, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't have the stuff to do that. Yeah, you do. Every time you have a little yogurt container or sour cream container, save it. That's what you're going to plant your little cast-offs in.
Toilet paper
and
roll.
Then what was toilet paper rolls? That's right. Anything like that you can grow in that you would normally throw away. And I tell you what, if somebody's going to go to, I'll tell you this from experience. I wanted to do the strawberries one year, and I went to the little store down the road and I wanted strawberries. It was like $15 for some strawberries, for some strawberry plants. But if Lady Boots, Miss Kacy's living down the road from me, and she's got little strawberry plants that are growing in yogurt containers or in little toilet paper rolls, and she's selling them for 50 cents, $1.50, whatever, I'm going to go see Kacy. And that's where I'm getting my stuff from. But unfortunately, people aren't taking advantage of that. And people think, oh, it's just too much effort. But you have to play the game if you're going to win at the game. You can't just forfeit everything and open up the trash and throw it away or think that you're going to do something otherwise. This is where, like Monica said earlier, we need to really start focusing on not just being self-sufficient, but community sufficient, where we have these resources amongst each other. So it's really great that you did that, Kacy. And maybe I'm stepping over the line here a little bit too much, but I mean, ballpark. If somebody were to plant some of those little runners, what's a fair price to ask your neighbors for little strawberry starts or raspberry starts? What do you think is fair?
I was selling mine because I had so many, like 10 of them in a Walmart bag for $5. So 50 cents a piece, and I was just, selling
Perfect.
Walmart bags full of them, left and right.
When you say Walmart bags, you mean just the clippings in a Walmart bag? They had to go home and plant them? Nice.
Well, they had already rooted. And so what I did was clip them from the mother plant and then just kind of dug up where they were so I didn't disturb the roots. And I just set clumps of them in Walmart bags and just kept them moist. And then they come and got them and put them in their soil.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Piece of cake. Also, talking about community, another thing I talked about in my fertilizer video is go to your farmers. Because they have not farmers as in like vegetable farmers, but animal farmers. Go to the people that have the barns and the animals. They make fertilizer every day. They will happily, right, Monica? They will happily let you come clean up their animal waste to get it out of their way. Because like I had a fellow tell me one time at the last homestead, the only thing I put in my garden at the time to get it started was horse manure. He said, come get it. I make it every day. He just has piles and piles and piles of it. So we just went and scooped it all up and we put it on the garden and bam, we planted straight into it. Of course, it had been sitting for 6 months or so from him, from his animals and all. But, that turns into soil. That's compost. That's fertilizer. And we just planted straight into it and had great success. Get the stuff, the barn clean out with the hay in it. That's mulch because your soil, as it rains, the dirt's going to wash out of it. The straw is going to stay on top and it's going to create that hay mulch barrier and it's going to break down. And it's just a process of it goes through, the compost and everything. Friends around here are happy for me to come clean out their barn so they don't have to. And it feeds me and my family and I get to sell the rest. I give them some for letting me, whatever kind of the barter system. But yeah, I mean, there's free stuff everywhere. Don't go broke trying to grow your own food because it's not worth it if you do.
Well, not to mention if you do have animals and you want to grow a garden and you're using it, but you have extra, then you can sell that, and that's a great way for you to barter or trade, barter with someone or sell it. We've got a barn full of rabbits and we sell not very often, but there's a lady that lives about an hour and a half south of us. And she has this beautiful, like raised bed gardens. And she's like, I'd like some rabbit manure, please. And I'm like, okie dokie. And she's a friend of a family. So she's like a friend of ours. And so we don't sell her, we don't even charge her for an entire bag, like a bag right now of, I think rabbit feed is costing me per bag. I think it's costing me about $20 for a bag of rabbit feed. I don't even charge her $20 for an entire bag of rabbit poop. I just want to make a little bit back so that I can put it towards a new bag of food because it's worth it to me. And we're already using that on ours. That's cold manure. So we can, that's cold compost or whatever. So we can literally take that manure and just put it straight on our trees or whatever we have with it. But I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, it's nice to be able to help out others and knowing that we're either bartering or we're making a little bit back to put right back into our animals. So yeah, animal farmers are always willing to do that kind of stuff for sure.
I think definitely one thing that some homesteaders like myself, if you can't see us, but I'm pointing to myself, get nervous on asking other people about bartering. And I'm here to tell you, I know we talked in another podcast where our guest said that their area doesn't really do the barter system, but from my experience, if you mention bartering to a homesteader, farmer, whatever you want to call them, they're all about it. And most of the time, when I'm at the farmer's market and another vendor will come up and say, "Oh, Kacy, I love your breads. You want to come over and look and see what I got at my table?" Most of the time, I'm getting my pork, I'm getting my ground beef for bread and cookie cake.
So?
Literally, that is what I'm doing to save money. The barter system is so cool to me because one, you're helping out somebody else's homestead, okay? And yes, you do have to think, okay, if my cookie cake is $5, how much is this? And some of the time people don't even care about that, but you do have to be kind of respectful and say, okay, I'm not going to say, hey, I got a $3 loaf of bread. Can I get some T-bone steaks? And expect them to be like, yeah, okay. Because usually that doesn't happen. I know Monica can tell me exactly how much T-bone steaks are cost-wise for the farmer and probably would not be a $3 loaf of bread. But no, I just love the barter system. So if you're scared to do it, just do it. The worst they could say is no, that they don't want to barter. And then and you move forward. Oh, well, you'll get over it. Just my little soapbox moment.
Well, I feel like so many people have already jumped out of their box anyway to garden and to homestead and do things. If you've already jumped out of your box a little bit and you're doing something like that, then jumping out of your box a little bit to ask questions shouldn't be that much harder. So, be encouraged if you've already making those steps to try to be more, living from your land and growing your own vegetables and doing those things. And you've already got enough courage to do something different because a lot of people aren't doing this. And I know it's been a bigger thing that people have been doing lately is gardening and stuff, but I still think there's a huge part of our population that is not growing their own food. They're still just getting everything from the grocery store. And just because you may be listening to the podcast, the homesteading stuff, and you think it's awesome and you're doing it, doesn't mean everybody else actually is. So if you are listening and you've done this already, you're one of those people that have already come out of a normal person's comfort zone and doing something different because a lot of people aren't doing this. And if it's something you want to do, go for it because it is so rewarding just to even just grow your own tomato. I mean, I made myself a sandwich today. I don't eat sandwiches. I hardly ever eat bread, ever. And I had the most gorgeous Cherokee purple tomato today. And you know what? I already had some bacon in my fridge because we had it for dinner last night.
That was a beautiful tomato. I will say that was a beautiful tomato.
I was like, let me tell you what, I'm going to make myself a BLT and I'm going to throw some Miracle Whip on it, which I don't ever eat. And I literally ate it. My stomach killed me later. I was like, oh, I ate bread. But let me tell you, it was the best sandwich. It was so good. And I was like, yes, girl, you grew this bacon. You grew this tomato. You bought this head of romaine because your romaine hasn't done well this year, but you did all the other stuff and it felt so good. And I was so thankful that the Lord allowed us to have just a portion of these things to be able to eat and to grow. And so it feels good to grow your own stuff, even if it's just
a small victory. A small victory is better than no victory.
Exactly.
And so, take those victories and embrace them. And one thing I was going to say is we have had people mention on the Facebook group and in some other arenas, they say, bartering just doesn't happen here. And that may be, but there's no reason why you can't reintroduce it. And one thing I think that people need to be aware of is maybe it's in the, I don't want to say necessarily the approach, but maybe it's in the verbiage. Maybe somebody had done some type of bartering before and they felt that they got burned. So maybe you need to change up the wording a little bit. Can we make a trade? Is there something I need that I can get from you? And maybe I've got something that you need, you can get from me. And maybe not necessarily even throw around the word barter, because I think for a while there, it got a little bit of a bad rap, but it's making a resurgence. And so, just be creative in how you present that to your neighbors. You're talking about going to the livestock areas, the different farmers to see if you can get the fertilizer. Some of them may not want you on their property because of their insurance. That's okay. They're going to have a spot where they put that stuff anyways, and you're going to be able to see if you can maybe go there and get some stuff. So there's always a way to work your way around it. It's all in how you present it. It's all in the verbiage that you use, and it's all in the attitude that you have. Go in with that homesteading grateful heart, and what can I do for you, and is there something that you can do for me in a positive way, not in just what can I get out of it. And it is all about that community that we're talking about. I know that we had posted something on the Facebook group about not just becoming self-sufficient but community sufficient, and there were some naysayers that said, no, we need to be self-sufficient. We do, but we can't do it all. We can't all. I can't grow coffee. I can't grow bananas. I can't grow olives. But there's going to be somebody somewhere that's going to have something that I can. That's where you have to depend on the community. And not that I've got anybody in my neighborhood growing bananas when it gets to 50 below zero where I live. But that's the point is nobody is going to be 100% self-sufficient. You have to get something from your community somewhere. Kacy mentions that one of the great additives that she adds to her garden is the gin trash. She doesn't have her own, cotton gin. She has to rely on going to that cotton gin and getting permission to get that gin trash. That is community sufficiency. She is so self-sufficient. She amazes us with what she does with her resources, but she's also smart enough with her resources to know she is not 100% self-sufficient. She has to look out beyond her little world to see what is available to her to help her be self-sufficient in the manner that she is. And I think that's something that our listeners and those who are on our social media need to really learn to embrace. It is not 100% black and white, all or nothing at all. You have to have that flexibility. You have to be open-minded enough to see where those opportunities are. So I just think it's amazing that Kacy has started this whole new garden for only $45, and that $45 was just manual labor. Everything else she's managed to come up with just because she thinks outside the box and she's creative. So kudos to you, Kacy. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Alicia, I have a question since we were talking about bartering. This is a question for our viewers and for you three ladies, okay? It's time for our trivia of the episode. Not that we ever have trivia, but right now is our first trivia. And I read this online, there was a poll about bartering and the most popular bartered items. What are number 1 and 2, without Googling, Monica, what are number 1 and 2 of the best bartering things that you should have on your homestead to trade? Alicia?
Alcohol.
Yes, that's 1. Okay. Number 2.
Ammunition.
Nope, that wasn't number 2. Wasn't number
really?
2.
Cigarettes.
Cigarettes, yes.
Eggs.
Cigarettes.
Tobacco.
Yeah.
I don't have either one. So what am I going to do? I only had vodka to make tinctures. I do have vodka.
See, there you
better
go.
start making wine.
I was about to say, you better start making wine, Monica.
My dad was in the Navy, and my dad used to barter off his cigarettes all the time because he didn't smoke. Yep. I was thinking cigarettes, but I was thinking more of the homestead. I'm really surprised.
That was so interesting. I mean,
That's pretty good.
I'm an ex-smoker, so I'm not going to have cigarettes around here. But alcohol, you betcha, is.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
My parents make wine, the fermented variety.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Kacy, you can't barter it if you're drinking it all, sweetie.
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Well, I thought it was really cool too. You do the boxes and stuff, the cardboard. And, that was something we started doing this year. And it's just because I needed walkways because everything was so crazy overgrown so fast. It's still a mess in my garden, but we started putting down the cardboard. And I've told Eric for years, I wanted to do cardboard. It's not near my house. I'm not worried about things because I've read also that if you have cardboard near your house, it can cause bugs in your house. And I'm like, it's not by my house. It's fine. It's away from my house. But it has been such a huge help. And I'm like, I actually need more boxes. I have to buy more Amazon stuff now because I have to put boxes in. No, I'm not going to ask my neighbors, Kacy. I am going to buy more Amazon things so that I can fill my garden with boxes.
You go to the liquor store and buy your liquor to have on hand to barter, and then go to the back, and they've got tons of boxes back there behind the liquor store.
Okay, that's
genius.
Good plan.
Well, now, because I make tinctures, you guys see this, you guys listening can't see it, but the tinctures and stuff behind me.
Yeah.
I go to our Mexican restaurant and get their tequila bottles and put my tinctures in it, and they can sit there and brew, or I can strain it out. That's glass bottles I don't have to pay for, and it already had liquor in it, so it's food grade, So
That's
you can
good.
actually store stuff like that in them. You can do your, if you infused oils, you can do your tinctures, anything like that. You can store in those glass bottles and you can get those. Now, in the last county I lived in, because I actually moved to a different county when we moved, but it's still next door to us, and they actually still have the green dumpsters just all over the county. Whereas a lot of people, I think just about everybody in West Tennessee has already went to the, I don't even know what they're called, the little trash centers kind of thing, where you take your trash to the center, between 8 and 5 kind of thing, and you sort it out. And so everybody else in West Tennessee is doing that, but the last county I lived in is not. They're trying to swap over to do that, but they still have the green dumpsters where Waste Management comes around, and dumps them. So if you can get there before Thursday, because Thursday's trash day, you can actually get all the boxes out of the dumpsters from the restaurants. And so that's where I got all of my boxes when we moved. I found 2 or 3 like Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, any of those places like that. They still have the dumpsters out back, and you can go and get their boxes out. So that's where I got all of my moving boxes. Well, when I was consciously thinking about the future garden, I got the brown boxes. So then whenever I got here and unpacked, all of my boxes were brown and didn't have the ink and the paint and the, the wrapping and all that stuff on it. So I was planning ahead as I was moving and packing and sorting the boxes I was getting. I was also planning for the garden I was going to use them in. And so that made the transition easier because I could just break them down and, store them until we got ready to do the garden. And all I had to do was take the tape and stickers off. And sometimes I didn't even do that. I just got lazy after 2 months.
That's really smart. I think that's a great idea. I like that idea. See, most people here in Texas, where we are in our county, they don't recycle. That's like not a thing. No. So everybody just burns their boxes. You just burn your paper, you burn all your paper trash, and you throw everything else away. So but I do have neighbors that I believe are older neighbors, and they may actually, you can probably pay a recycle company. I think we may have one in our community, but it might be worth looking into. I may have to not buy more Amazon. If Eric's listening, I won't buy more. I maybe go ask the neighbors for some extra boxes. But yeah, it's great to be resourceful like that. And it's well done for thinking ahead, because honestly, that's not something I would even thought of. I would have never been like, I'm going to get brown boxes so that I can put them in my garden. Like I would have been like, just put my stuff in boxes and move.
Well, this is a good time that people are moving as well. It's nice weather, although we started packing in July, I will not suggest that to anybody. But, people had either just moved or are thinking about moving, while the weather's nice before it's ice and snow everywhere. And this is a good time to go ahead and ask friends for those boxes. Hey, if you're moving, let me know. I'll come get them off your hands after you're done. Save them up, because fall is the best time to start a garden so it can compost over the winter, and it's good to go for the spring. Because in the spring and summer, if you're starting a garden, you're constantly fighting the grass, you're constantly fighting the weeds because everything's starting to bloom. Don't work yourself to death. Don't do what I do and start your garden in February or March. Don't fight the weeds and grass if you can help it. So if you're just moving or just starting to plan on your garden, do it in the fall. You're not fighting the spring rain. You're not fighting all the weeds and all the grass. It's everything that's bursting with energy to grow in the spring, and it's starting to die. It's lost that energy to grow. So do it in the fall. Also in the fall, you're going to get your leaves. You're going to get, your dead grass clippings. You're going to get all this dead stuff for the carbon on top of the cardboard boxes that is going to compost over the wintertime. And then you can also put your nitrogen from your manure on top of that. And that's a good base for it to compost over the wintertime. So in the springtime, it's ready to go. And you don't have to do anything but plant your stuff in it, Just rake it up, make it pretty, and you're ready to go with a garden.
I'll say I did that with, you have the brown paper bags that you put like tree limbs and that kind of stuff from the big box stores. So when I was trying to clean up the homestead when we first moved here and be bougie, I was like, oh, I'm not going to burn the wood. I'm just going to save it and then maybe put it on the side of the road, and magically a recycle truck will come, which we don't have here in the little boony town I live. But I learned that I put the brown paper bags with the limbs in the bottom of my raised beds. I got to get some of my frustration out to crush the limbs. And then right there, you got your quote unquote cardboard-ish type of stuff. You have the limbs, you have the leaves that you're raking up from the fall. And then you can
The
put
wood ash.
and the potash all mixed in at one. Potash and
burn all your trash and you get the fertilizer.
Well, I think that's something too to remember too, is even then, when people are burning in their wood stoves over the winter, collect that ash, throw that in your garden space. That's one thing that my kids do all summer, all winter long, because we have a huge compost pile where we put all the poop and all that other stuff and all the stuff we clean out of the hutches in the winter. But in the wintertime specifically, the kids will, because I usually don't have a big winter garden, but wherever I'm not growing anything, they will literally just take our bucket of our ash every day, usually once a day, and they just dump it into the garden space because it's not going to go anywhere. We've already wet it down, and they just put it right into the garden space. So we've got that going right into our garden like the entire winter long, instead of walking it way out to compost in our pasture, because it's a little bit of a hike. But it's been really helpful to have that ash. So if you're burning wood throughout your winter, keep that in mind. That can go in your garden as well. And it's free.
Absolutely.
Same thing with burn piles. I've even gotten to where I'll shovel up the remains of a burn pile from my wood and trees when I cut them down, and scoop that up and put it on the garden. I started a new compost pile because I got too lazy to walk to the very first compost pile. So then I created a halfway compost pile. So am I lazy today, or am I getting my steps in today? That's what I think when I go to compost.
It's better to work smart. Work smart, not hard. You have to work smart, not hard. Every once in a while, I look at my very first compost and I wave at it way across the orchard. Hello. Yeah, haven't seen you in forever, and that's okay. I'm not going out there. You were talking about the ash, Monica. If you don't have a fireplace, maybe your neighbor does. There's nothing wrong with stopping by there. Hey, what do you do with your ash during the wintertime? Oh, we put it in a bucket on the porch. Do you mind if every once in a while if I come grab that? Because I'd like to use it in my garden. They might have a garden of their own. You just gave them an idea, but they might say, sure, take it.
I'll bring you some vegetables for it.
Right. Because, Alicia down the street, she grows a gazillion cucumbers, and she wants your ash, and she'll bring you some cucumbers. So, but another thing mentioning about
triggering.
I know, I can't help it. And here now I can't even get my seeds to germinate this year. I have no cucumber plants up yet. But anyways, one thing that we're talking about adding things to your garden to get the best results is we are sponsored by Cayce. And we'll be having our little plug for Cayce throughout the show. But I had the best garden last year using Cayce. And for those of you who don't know, it really is, it's a calcium supplement from seaweed. So you don't have to get fancy. We've given you lots of ideas that you can add to your garden to have some really great compost for free. But if you want to go that extra step, we really highly suggest you look into Cayce. It's not just that we're sponsored by them, which we are,
but we fully 100% believe in the product. We really do.
We
I had
like to
the most
calzyme the crap out of
beautiful.
everything.
We calzyme the crap out of everything, and
Kacy, have you used calzyme?
I have not, but I have heard y'all talking about it.
Yeah,
we gotta get
last year
you
were
some
amazing.
calzyme, Kacy. We gotta get you some calzyme.
You would be amazing at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good.
Nice. I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I could do video on it too. No big deal.
I mean, Monica's growing these big, huge Uranus peaches this year. Oh, not Uranus, Saturn peaches. I'm sorry.
Unscripted.
Not Uranus peaches.
This is the promised land. We grow Saturn peaches.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got my planets mixed up a little bit.
Wow.
You can't take me anywhere. But her peaches are amazing this year.
You got big peaches this year. And
what big peaches you have.
And my plums came in really well. Like I had nice plums.
She has big Pluto plums.
I have nice plums. All my plums looking good. They're done. Plum tree is done for the year. It's all green. All my plums are gone. But my peaches are like coming in perfect. And Eric is saying I'm very adamant that it's the calzyme that we've used. And, just the idea. It is really amazing. But, it's been a huge help for our and if you have to spend money on something, spending money on something like that is going to be a benefit. And it's not actually that expensive. So
and it goes a long way.
It does. And you can actually use it in a lot of different places. So I like that part of it too.
Kacy, let me tell you, when we started using calzyme, they sent us some. We were all very skeptical at first. Because, I mean, you hear about all these different fertilizers that I'm sure you've been reached out by many companies saying, hey, do this, talk about it on your channel, blah, blah, blah. So we all used it. So I used it on my tomatoes last year. And when I tell you no end rot, blossom rot, whatever you're going to call it, my tomatoes were absolutely stunningly gorgeous from start to end. The leaves were beautiful. I mean, I didn't have to use any other fertilizer last year than calzyme. So I swear by it now. So we are going to get calzyme to send Miss Lady Boots some calzyme so she will be a believer. It's like we're on that, what's that selling show? QVC. We're like the QVC network over here.
We are QVC. I put it in the water buckets because I have these like those water bucket. They're like old protein tubs from my cows. Another thing you can get for free from cattlemen if they don't need the protein tubs, go get you some protein tubs. My sister and brother-in-law actually grow their vegetables in protein tubs.
Absolutely.
But we use the protein tubs to line my garden with, and so the water that we have collected, the free rain water we have collected, we transfer from our big water tubs into my small buckets, and I water from those. I just dip it and I locally water my plants. And I actually put calzyme in every one of those protein tubs so that I'm pulling out calzyme water. And so every day when I water my plants, there's just a little bit of the calzyme in those big tubs. It's not a huge amount, but it's a little bit. And I have had the best success with my stuff. So yeah. It's been good. So don't forget about your farmers with protein tubs and all the other junk that you can get that they're probably ready to get rid of that can be very useful in the garden.
Absolutely. One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Very true.
As long as it's not a bunch of Maalox bottles, right, Kacy, down there in Georgia?
Yeah.
Triggering.
Well, you know what, guys? We have had such a great time getting together with Kacy from Boots and Bounty. We do hope you'll stop by her YouTube channel, show her some love. She is a wealth of knowledge. She knows so much, and she is so gracious to share everything she knows with all of you. So stop by her channel, subscribe, like, share, and show her some love. Let her know that you came to her through this podcast, and, show us some love too on our channels as well. And, I just really want to thank Kacy for being here with us today and spending some time with us. And we congratulate her on everything that she and her family have done in their new little homestead. We're so happy for her success. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye for this episode, but we will be back. We'll see you on the next week's episode. Make sure, though, before we say goodbye, be sure you tune in tomorrow live on Facebook for our Hey Y'all Hey Morning Show. So until we see you then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, have a blessed day, and we will see you on our next episode. Hey Y'all Hey.